Hello and welcome back to the FUT Weekly podcast, and in fact welcome back to me. It's been a little while, been on my mystery tour, but it's nice to be back recording with some familiar guests on this gameplay episode, including JoshXLS, who did such a good job hosting in my absence. Great to have you back.
Yeah, good to be here. Nice to be on this side of the fence now. I'm not hosting. I get to relax a little bit more now.
Yeah, I did get my relaxing in, which is good, and it's good to have 𝗲𝗍𝗻 on the pod too. Hello, welcome back.
Cheers, Benton. Glad to hear that you had a successful and safe trip and return, and you discovered, the golden treasure at the end of the rainbow, or however it works.
Well, I certainly did point out some issues with the rainbow to the leprechaun, and also mentioned that the gold available over the past year maybe hasn't been quite what people would feel, acceptable, and it feels like that's changed. It might be a bit of a coincidence, but it's good to see, as it is good to see once again Richard Buckley, eWorld Cup commentator, of course. Welcome back to the pod.
Thank you very much. You know what they say, you can't have the rainbow without a little bit of rain. So maybe we're going through the rain.
Very, very well done. We'll move into talking, first of all, actually, I just wanted to kind of catch up a bit, because obviously I've been out of action. I haven't played the game at all, apart from yesterday. I played Champs, got it finished. I thought I couldn't miss Ultimate TOTS despite being pretty jet lagged. And I was thinking as I was playing, there seems to be a lot of new, I guess, I don't know whether it's emerging metas, because I think they've been emerging for a while, but certainly with the different players people have now compared to when I left, it feels like certain things are becoming increasingly common. It wasn't so much aerial play that I was seeing a lot of, but it feels like people have finally cottoned on to, I guess you'd already seen it with Drogba, but even players who don't have Drogba have cottoned on to kind of the big man meta with 𝘵𝘂𝘁, etc. I'm pretty gutted to have missed the 𝘵𝘂𝘁, actually. I think he would have suited me quite well because he's got the 5-star skills too. I guess one thing I was going to ask, just to kind of get a gameplay question in early on, when I was playing, I was thinking about it. It feels like almost impossible at times to defend, say, 𝘏𝘂𝘁 or 𝘭𝘪𝘬. Have any of you found anything particularly helpful for not defending in the air necessarily, but actually defending on the ground against someone who can manipulate the ball like 𝘏𝘂𝘁 can and hold off players? 𝗲𝗍𝗻s, do you have a particular approach or something that's worked well against you, I guess, as well? Just pray.
𝗵𝘃𝗍𝗻's pretty annoying. 𝗵𝘏𝑒 can be annoying if he's used appropriately, but otherwise, nah. Someone truly talented with skills that has 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘬 is the one that's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
He's not 𝘏𝘂𝘁, that's been evoed 3 times now, but he's very, very good.
I'm jealous of the 3 times evoed 𝘏𝘂𝘁, because I got the TOTS regular, not the red, and yeah, so not as evolvable, but he is really good.
If I had been told that I was oh cool, I got 𝘏𝘂𝘁𝘁 red, he's not going to be that expensive, I could have just bought him when it happened. But had I known at the time that the Champions Corner would play out the way it would, and I would have the chance to evo him this many times, I would have been over the moon.
The funny thing about me being away is, of course, it means I haven't done any of these red Champs upgrades. And I was going to ask you, 𝗲𝗍𝗻s, a bit of a selfish question, I guess, from me. Are you still enjoying the PSG Hernandez centre-back? Because I could actually give him 3 upgrades. I just got his red.
So I sold him. Not because he's bad, but just because I wanted the coins to be able to do other things with. But then I packed Haaland out of this one, so now I have plenty of coins because I sold him promptly, and it's 3 million coins or whatever. But I did get Theo again out of one of the guaranteed draft ones, and I was pretty pleased with that because he is super, super good. If there was a good way to get him into my current squad, I would probably do it.
Okay.
But I just can't get him in. But giving him 3 upgrades, that would be beefy. 3 upgrades on a center back. You got to really love the center back because you're investing heavily there. So you got to make sure that they really fit your squad, I think.
Yeah, because I did that red pick SBC, right? The one where you submit 11 reds.
Oh, yeah.
I actually don't really have many options, I'm not going to lie, so it might have to be him. That being said, one player who definitely isn't eligible, as far as I know, who I got in reds, finally some good red pick luck. I mean, I would have taken the Hernandez. I think he's the most valuable I've had so far. I got a certain Jude Bellingham in my reds. So Sounds pretty successful for yourself, Japes, as well, because a tradable Haaland is very nice.
Tradable Haaland's good. I also got 𝗏𝗏, who I was really, really hoping for. So that was exciting. And then I got 𝘭𝘶 as well. So my team is just like slowly morphed into Liga F, NWSL, and Boniface side. Because you gotta have big Boniface up there. But I think I have three men's. No, well, I have 𝘵𝘃𝗲𝗃, so I have red Sergio Ramos, and I think that's it. And Boniface. Those are the only men's players I have at the moment. Otherwise, I'm using 𝗏𝗏 and Trinity Rodman, who is phenomenal. I absolutely love her. And I'm using that Coffee as DM. She could be replaced because I was thinking about putting my 89 Vieira in that SBC. Not the SBC, the Evo. So I don't know. It's just hard to get cards in at the moment, but I have a lot that I really like. So it's pretty fun. Yeah. The Barcelona women, 𝗏𝗏, and then I sold Haaland and went out and bought Patelis, and that was definitely the right call. Super fun.
I'm just sat here seething at the moment at the red luck that everybody else get. I had one good week. They gave me a Theo Hernandez during Serie A, and then everybody got him in reds, including me this week, and got nothing else. My 3 TOTS pack was all duplicates. I got my 14 wins, so it was untradeable. It was all duplicate untradables. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, how's it been for you, Richard, over this weekend?
I was the first entry into the 𝗏𝗏 crew. So I took my red 𝗏𝗏.
Have you played with her?
I have, yeah. I've played a little bit. I think she's really good. However, once they're evoed, a midfield duo of 𝘭𝘪𝘬𝘀 and Josh Benson, both from Barnsley, probably will trump her. But I'm tempted to even put her out wide.
Yeah.
I think she could do a job out wide as well.
I think her price is fair. Like, what is she, like 600? I think she's like appropriately priced.
Her shooting, just mini review on 𝗏𝗏, her shooting is really, really good.
Yeah.
She's incredible in around the box, inside the box. I mean, dribbling wise, I'm pretty sure she's perfect across every start. She's really good, but and then my other red I got was 𝘵𝘍𝑖, who again he's pretty decent. I found that you were talking a lot about like not exploits recently, but like gameplay stuff that we're just discovering now. And I know I think Nep was talking about like the flare finesse shots and whatnot. I found with 𝘵𝘍𝑖, she's got Acrobat Plus. So if I scoop the ball up and then finesse it on the volley, it counts an Acrobat Plus shot.
Yeah.
Even though I'm finessing it, and it just flies in like a lot of the time.
So what are you using to scoop it up generally?
Just R3.
Press R3.
Yeah, just flicking the stick down.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and then just finessing it. And I don't know if you remember back in the day when you'd scoop it up and lob it over the keeper, like on the angle, like on the edge of the box. The goalkeeper just doesn't really react to it and doesn't dive. So I'm experimenting a lot with it recently, but she's pretty good. I quite enjoyed 𝘵𝘍𝑖 as well. Another 99 dribbling player.
I was trying to get 𝘵𝘍𝑖 in, and I have too many like right mid striker cards. I just couldn't find a formation to make it work.
All my best players are striker right mids. I've got no one from the left. I'm like, I just need someone to play off the left. Like,
we should swap some players. I'm the same, but on the left.
Yeah, honestly, like my best red from last week's champs was from the intermittent sort of red pick every 2 win players, and I mentioned it on the content pod, but Dybala was the guy, so I'm really happy with him. So I'm tempted to just put him left mid on 0 chemistry, and just play him because I think he'd be amazing still.
Yeah. It's interesting. I noticed when I was away, you were talking about how Sawlett isn't very good. And I think that's something that's sort of widely accepted and is maybe reflected in his price as well. I was noticing he didn't have that crucial thing of press proven. And having used Boniface a lot more and even using him quite recently, where you think maybe, the power curve could be catching up to him because he came out a while ago, he's still obviously extremely good. It kind of makes me think, is press proven, if a player is big, basically crucial? Like, you can't not have some version. And is there much difference between the base and the plus, do you think?
I mean, I think there's a difference between base and plus for sure. And I would say it is crucial. But I feel like I've been chanting about press proven for like a long time.
Yeah.
When that Hullet came out, that SBC, I was like, this is my favorite playstyle. I have to do him. But like it's horribly misunderstood and underutilized appropriately. But having a big man, especially when you get the big man with like Boniface and with an engine on his Evo now, he's got like 99 agility and balance with Press Plus. Like, forget about it. It's so hard for people to deal with.
Yeah. What I've noticed, especially because of the size of the player, because it gives you that close control dribbling that's very accurate, you can actually just left stick around centre backs in a way that I don't think is possible with smaller players, or it just takes them longer to move around.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things I think people underrate about it. Yes, it's really good for holding off all these really physical centre backs we have, and you're not going to have them slam into the back of you and take the ball really easily, especially if you hold LT. But it's more for me that dribbling that you get in the box alongside the physical hold-up play that makes them really unique. And I've used 𝘵𝘀𝘁 as well, and he was very good, but he has base press proven. I'd say the difference between 𝘵𝘀𝘁 and Boniface is quite obvious.
Yeah, the stark contrast between Haaland and Boniface, their ability like on the ball is just substantial. Like, it's so substantial.
And he has no version of press proven. All right.
He has no version of press proven.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you actually, and actually just a question for everyone. Do you think it makes a huge difference on forwards who aren't so physical and large?
I've got a weird one that's not a forward I can talk about. There's, what is her name? Sam Coffey. She's a CM. Has press proven plus. She's 93 rated from the NWSL. I think she's like 5'5" maybe. So not a big player. And her dribbling stats are, she has one stat in the 90s, like just one. But because she has press proven plus and she's like tiny, her dribbling is like insane. And I just feel like it can, for little players, it can really, really compensate for having potentially poor dribbling stats.
Did you end up using a Pender?
You know what? I got him in the Bundesliga red pick thing.
Because he has press proven plus, doesn't he? And quick step plus.
Yeah, I brought him on as a substitute, and he is pretty good. He like doesn't quite fit a role in my setup. Like, he's just like not built for my place. Like, he's not quite big, even though he's got base aerial, he's like not quite big enough to play the striker role for me. His passing isn't quite good enough to play one of the two, and I guess I could play him as the right attacking mid, but even then I'm like, doesn't quite feel right. He's absolutely torn me to pieces, and I will 100% attribute that to having that press proven.
So I was thinking, maybe I should get him because maybe he's like Boniface, but he's not so good in the air, but he's not big better on the ground. But then I'm not really using the aerial element of Boniface, so maybe that's fine.
Yeah.
But is the physical size just generally, I guess, a big downgrade, even if you're not using him in the air? Anyway, we should move on. Let me ask some other questions, and we'll come to you, Richard, actually, because I think you hinted in the content pod that you might be trying a new tactic.
Yeah, so recently the Champions League, Johnny won the entire tournament using the 4-4-1-1.
Huh.
And I thought I want to have a little try of it. So I got his tactics from him, and it is extremely aggressive, and it's not going to be for everyone because you will concede goals. It's the formation that I played this year where I'm probably getting the most success out of it, but I've got to concentrate the most while playing. I can play 4-3-2-1 and get 16 wins without really focusing, if that makes sense. Like, the formation just plays the game for you.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, I can run you through it very quickly. I'm playing
Take
balanced defensive style, 39 width, 100 depth, balanced build-up, direct passing, 55 width, 7 players in box, and then 1-on-1 corner free kicks.
7 in box is chunky with direct passing.
We are overloading. And then instructions-wise, it's pretty simple. Across the back 4, I've got Philipp Lahm on stay back. I'm using team of the season 𝘬𝑯𝘆 because I really wanted someone who can play going forward at left back on stay back, and he's a player that I found in the back of my club and can play going forward. Like, I'm really, really impressed with him so far.
Yeah, I used the birthday version actually, and the Tiki Taka Plus is really nice there, I think.
Tiki Taka, technical dribbling plus. I think he's got rapid and quick step, both silver. Unbelievably quick once you press R2 down the byline with him. And then both wide mids on comeback. The right centre mid is on cover centre, stay back. The left centre mid's on balanced, cover centre. Centre forward is on come back on defence, and then the strikers getting behind, stay central.
So how does when your team like sets up defensively, where does that center forward go?
Basically, 2 banks of 4, and then it's almost like you set me up for this, because I did a piece of analysis on the broadcast on Johnny's formation against the 4-3-2-1, and at the event they had to use Champions League players. He was using 𝘬𝘬𝘦 as his centre forward, and your 2 banks of 4, the midfield 4 and the defensive 4 will sit in 2 banks of 4, pretty compact. But then the centre forward typically will sit in behind the 3 centre mids of the 4-3-2-1, just in the gap. Like, they are always able to be in that gap and be able to play. And as soon as if you can bring your defence in and your midfield in and make it tight and compact, that centre forward, if played correctly, will be able to turn and then just go. And it's a really, really good counter-attacking formation. So at the minute, I'm using Kane as that centre forward, team of the season Kane, because I wanted someone who can move and can pass, and he's the perfect player I've found in that position at the moment.
Yeah, it's always felt like the 4-3-2-1 midfield should have been exploitable, so I guess nice to see perhaps it is. Does the centre forward help in defence too?
Yes, that's why I wanted Kane in there, someone with a bit of presence. Even though he's not great defensively.
He's big.
Yeah. And he's high, which he does help out defensively.
He is technical plus, doesn't he?
Yeah, so he can get out of tight spaces.
Yeah, so
really
he's fast. Yeah, with his frame, that technical plus, then he's fast when he gets going.
Yeah, because he's got base rapid as well, doesn't he? He's quite funny actually. He's quite a unique player, I think. First touch as well.
He's amazing. He's really, really good.
You've got the centre forward dropping in. They don't fully come back, do they? It's not like a midfield 5 sitting, but it's kind of sitting in front.
No, it's sort of like it's a 4-4, and then that 1 is sort of just occupying their own space.
So something you don't get with like a 4-4-2, really, right? Yeah.
No, where you've got your 2 basically just sat up top on their own.
So I guess that creates a bit more movement, because I think one of my criticisms whenever I use a 4-4-2, and you were talking about it actually on the podcast, the 4-3-3 brackets 4, which can be a really annoying formation to play against, but whenever I use it, it feels a bit static. You're saying that there is plenty of movement between the players and it feels nice to attack with.
I think the way that it plays, especially when you can get the ball into that sort of centre forward area, the quickness in which you transition is really nice. Like, because on the 100 depth, as soon as you get that ball, the AI will just push up straight away for your defence. Like, you will almost squeeze the gap on your own. The 100 depth won't be for everyone, because you will get hit over the top a lot. And I think defensively, that's where it took me a little while, because I had to be really, really switched on right stick player switching to make sure that I were blocking spaces.
What are the left mid and right mid instructions again?
They are come back on defense. Just that's it on both of them.
That's it. Interesting.
Yeah. The 100 depth thing is interesting, because I felt like I played a lot of people playing a very high depth this weekend, where it kind of just compressed the game into about a 20-yard space. And the only way really to try and break it down was to get that chip over the top. Like, if you can just get a player on a run that can put them in behind. And like, there were times when it worked, and there were times when I'm just not quick enough to get that pass off because it's so compressed in the middle. So I definitely think there's a push towards a slightly higher depth now. I think I've seen an awful lot more, and a tendency of players to stop controlling defenders a lot more in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I think it's because people have just got these incredible defenders now, and all-round midfielders that have high defensive work rate, good defensive stats, great defensive positioning specifically. And you're seeing people a lot more now kind of just let the AI defend for itself, and they'll go and try and cut a passing lane or bring a forward back to come and defend, which can make it quite frustrating at times. But yeah, I'm all for trying different formations, and 4-4-1-1 is a formation that I feel like has kind of been on the periphery throughout the year. There's been times when people, in fact, I think I remember early in the year, somebody using it and saying this is actually working quite nicely because of that centre forward actually being more active and creating a bit of difference in the way that the team moves in the attack. So yeah, I'm definitely up for giving it a go.
Yeah, and actually, before we move on from tactics, Richard, you mentioned the centre forward role, but apart from that, are there any more kind of specialist roles that people need to consider at all, or is it sort of what you'd expect from a 4-4-2 type setup otherwise?
I like both fullbacks being able to play, which I mean it's quite a regular thing now. But having, as I said, 𝘬𝘯𝘰𝗍𝘏, and I'm still using Team of the Year 𝘵𝘃𝗍𝘠 as my right back.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
What do you like?
Long ball pass plus, just being able to ping it from left to right and get out of danger is. I've got a real lack of right backs, and I don't want to go and buy one. And every time I've sort of brought someone in, he's always sort of lingering in the club.
Chemistry, impact, I guess, as well.
Brought him back in. Yeah, he helps on chem as well.
Yeah, there are definitely plenty of icons lingering around that aren't maybe quite good enough, but helpful for chemistry on quite a few players. Let's take a break on that, actually, and we'll come back to talk a lot more about gameplay tips and a little bit extra as well after this break. Catch you in just a second. Hello, listeners. A quick reminder that this podcast is made possible through the generosity of supporters out there. And actually, they aren't just doing it out of the kindness of their heart, because you get a whole extra podcast every single week as a supporter. And you can sign up for a 7-day free trial right now over on Patreon. And after that, it's just £3 a month to continue supporting. It makes a huge difference. The podcast for a time wasn't able to be weekly because I had other work commitments, but this has made it possible to deliver a podcast every single week, and in fact, an extra one too, just for supporters, as I mentioned. So if that interests you and you want that extra content, and actually if you would like even more, there's the supporter Discord at the gold tier. There is the Hall of Fame at the end of the podcast in the icon tier. There are loads of perks available. So why not check it out if you haven't done so already by searching Support FUT Weekly or following the link in the description of this podcast. If you consider doing so, that would be hugely appreciated, and a big thank you to all those supporters, as I said, keeping the podcast going and keeping FUT Weekly weekly. Right, let's get back into the pod. Hello, welcome back after the break. So before we get into some more meaty discussion, I had one quick question, which was, has anyone used a player recently that they've been disappointed by that's kind of meant they learned something? Because I had this with Grimaldo, and I've actually been really quite disappointed with him, having used him throughout champs. I think it's the lack of any kind of quick step, which makes him feel pretty poor defensively in terms of being able to catch players, and maybe restricts him a bit going forward, although he does a rapid plus. So I guess on the ball, he's fine, but off it, he doesn't feel quite quick enough. And also, actually, I think because he's controlled explosive, that's not necessarily something that's particularly desirable, I think. But yeah, anyone else had a player that they've been not so impressed with?
I've got a player who's been moved off my bench, never mind out of the starting lineup, that I think people will lose their minds over. And it's Dembele's team of the season. I just can't get on with it. He doesn't feel quick. He takes weird touches. I'm not a tricky 5-star skill cancel glitcher, so maybe that plays into it. But I get more out of Vinicius Jr., so there's clearly some difference in there, even though I actually don't think Vinicius is all that insane either. But
he has 84 composure. I know you guys were saying how composure is not super important, but I just feel like...
I definitely think it plays into it, for sure. Definitely.
You want a really interesting stat highlight for me? So Sophia Smith, she has finesse shot plus, right? 5-star weak foot. I looked at her stats and I was like, well, clearly basic is the way to go here, right? Like basic will give her like pretty decent solid boosts in areas she needs it across the board. Her finesse shots were not good. Not bad, but like not to the level of the elite finesse shot takers that I've had previously. Slapped an engine on her to get that curve up to 94, elite finesse shots.
Ooh. Because it used to be that the finesse shot trait would give you 99 curl on your shots, regardless of what the stat was.
It would make sense they might have changed that to interact a bit more with the stats. Yeah.
My best finesse taker that I've used all year is Harry Kane. It should be with the shooting stats that he's got, but like his conversion rate is second to none on the finesse.
Mine was probably Griezmann. Like Griezmann's finesses are so stupid.
Yeah, I do wonder whether there's also something to do with the player's like stride or their body position taking the shots. So like depending on how they move their body in the build up to the finesse, that affects the outcome of the shot to some extent, right? It's like how to take a finesse, you kind of want to face away from the goal a bit, right? So maybe there's something about the way that they kind of angle themselves when taking the shot that helps their finesse shot be more, I guess, powerful, accurate, or whatever. I noticed, I was saying before that Podolski's power shots are like way better than any other player I've used in terms of power shots. I'm still not completely sure what that is. He does have incredible shooting stats, but I've used other players with incredible shooting stats and his seem better. I do wonder whether there's like a weight impact on power shots to some extent. He seems to be able to hit them really much harder. I don't know. There's so much more kind of playstyle experimenting and discovery to be done, I guess, isn't there? Like even now, it feels like we will continue for potentially cycles to be finding things out about playstyles and combinations and things like that, which is quite exciting, especially with the fact that it's confirmed 4 playstyle pluses coming into the game over the next couple of weeks.
Just before we move on from the 4 playstyle pluses, I saw a visual glitch of 5 in game the other day. Not like an Evo that's gone wrong, but 5 spots for playstyle pluses on a card where 2 of them were blank.
Ooh.
So I'm just saying.
Yeah, they're cooking it up. I did see some speculation, and people may have seen this, and I think it's worth clarifying that basically if you have the same player as your opponent and you're the home team, the playstyle pluses don't actually function at all. And the person who posted this, I think it was on Reddit or something, basically they've been testing it, trying to use the outside foot corners because they thought that was only something you could do with double plus, which I don't think is true because I've done them with players without. I think it's to do with 𝗏𝗏. But essentially, it turns out, I think, from people testing it further, that it's a visual glitch. So the playstyles are still functioning, just they aren't showing up as functioning in certain scenarios. So I guess worth bearing that in mind. It does seem that all playstyle pluses, all 3 of them are still working, and that is good to know. Final thing I was going to move us on to is any kind of specific gameplay tips. And I was also thinking, in future we might talk more about, what people tend to get up to gameplay wise in the off season, what your approach to gameplay is, but we'll probably cover that in a future podcast. So any actual gameplay tips and tricks? I think Josh, you were mentioning you might have one.
Yeah, I mean, just a skill move that I have always enjoyed using, but I feel like the way a lot of people defend at the moment is like they push up quite heavily into the back of a big striker, especially with like the kind of big man meta that you've got now, and especially with those big defenders. Like I see a lot of people using the kind of tar builds, those like 6'4" kind of stocky defenders, and a lot of play happens around the edge of the box. It feels like, people use the 4-3-2-1. The other, the good thing the 4-5-1's good at is having that extra player along the edge of the box to create that space. And so what you get is people trying to press really quickly into a player. And with so many players having 5-star skills now, I've started adding sombrero flicks while facing away from the box.
Yeah.
So much. And the moment anybody has any forward momentum with a defender whilst you're in the process of the sombrero flick, I kind of know I'm getting a good shot off on goal, because they just waltz past you as you kind of turn them, and you can go past 2 or 3 defenders using it. If somebody's got a stacked box, you'd be shocked how many times they're holding second man press and you just completely remove 2 players out of the picture in one go. So yeah, if they've got Trickster, it's much easier. Obviously, you just need to flick in the right stick and hold backwards, and they'll do it. Or if you've got 5-star skills, just the kind of 2 flicks away and 1 back, and they'll do the little sombrero flick. And yeah, it's a proper rage quit inducer as well. I got 4 rage quits this weekend off the back of a sombrero flick goal.
Yeah, it's a really good tip. It does generally work more effectively this cycle, I feel like. In the past, the opposition defender would just head it away almost all the time. But now something to do with, I guess, the way the AI is this year, it doesn't read it quite as well. And yeah, a good point. The controls actually are quite simple in a way if you think about it, because it's like you flick the right stick, the way you're facing twice, and then the way you want to go once, and it will do it over your head. So yeah, it's a good little skill to know.
I was just real quick on the sombrero flick. I find that I oftentimes, like sometimes my players, if I do it with really short players, like some of the women's players, the defender behind them will just like jump up in the air and like chest it for me, it seemed to work better with bigger players.
Yeah, I totally agree. It makes a big difference with being able to actually get the ball up and over. And one thing I would add is that you can power shot off it quite effectively when the ball's in the air. And obviously, if the player has acrobatic, that can be helpful too, to take a first time shot rather than, bring it down and the extra time that would take if you are in a good shooting position. One thing I've found quite useful and actually have really started to get into, partly because of a tip on the pod about how cheap 𝘵𝘅𝘐𝑰𝑎 is getting, and they updated his price range, so he's even cheaper than he was. I think he's like 100k or something like that, and he's so good, and the technical dribble especially is amazing. What you can do with technical dribble is while you're dribbling, if you hold R1, obviously you're going to be holding R1 because you're technical dribbling, but what that allows you to do is the effort touch when you flick the right stick, and you can flick that in a direction. You don't want to go out too much for an angle typically, but you can get a really nice little kind of shimmy, a little movement that accelerates you a bit and can pull you away from a tackle or just change direction unexpectedly. It's really, really good, and seems to catch people even at the top level kind of off guard, and also good for going around keepers actually. So yeah, give that a try. And the other thing I wanted to mention is the threaded through ball, which is a little bit underrated, I think, or at least I don't see many people using it. You hold L1 and R1 and then press through ball, and it goes further ahead of the player and is really good for slipping it behind defenders, particularly fullbacks. If you've got a lengthier forward than the defensive player, it can give you the space to beat that more explosive player over that longer distance. So I give those two things a go if you can. And Richard, let's hear from you. Any particular tips you've picked up, whether at pro events or otherwise?
One quick thing, I think I've spoken about it before. If you are using a aerial plus striker, Drogba, Soloff, Haaland, any of them, and you are under a little bit of pressure, if you end up going back to your goalkeeper, and I do this a lot, and it helps me get out really easily, instead of just clearing the ball normally, do a full R1 square up the pitch with the goalkeeper, so a manual pass, a manual cross, it counts as instead. You get a lot more power on it, you clear it a lot further, and the way that the lock-ons have sort of been coded, like your aerial plus striker will almost always win the header. So you can almost aim it as well. I know a lot of pros will play their like wide players, the left forward as the aerial plus striker who drops into the left mid in the 4-3-2-1, and then they will aim their clearances towards that player. So I think especially when you're getting pressed on champs and you are maybe got a few minutes left to play, knowing where you want the ball to be going instead of just panicking and going back to the goalkeeper and then pressing circle and clearing it 25 yards, which happens a lot to opponents. That full R1 square will get you up the pitch really, really easily. And it's just something to have in the back pocket, really.
Yeah. You know when the whistle's going to blow and you want to put it out for a throw and maybe to end the game. It's really good for that as well, isn't it? Because you can just direct it straight off. What I was going to say is actually, obviously we're at the end of Team of Season now, heading into Euros, as discussed on the Supporter Content podcast this week. It looks like we've got an update to Champs Rewards, which will, I'm sure, interest people listening to this podcast who may be planning to jump into Champs even after Team of the Season. What are the rewards now looking like then, post Team of the Season?
Yeah, so like there's always that question, isn't there, after TOTS, like what happens to Champs, because the rewards get so good for Champs, and they seem to have got better.
What?
So rank 1, because we all go 20-0 here, you get the 484 plus player picks that you got before, and you still get 3 ultimate TOTS Champs picks, 1 of 5 94 plus, and you get 3 tradable 83x5 top Euro Nations pack, and you get 3 83x5 Copper America Nations pack, and then you get the 87x3 2 ultimates, the ultimate TOTS 3 player pack, and coins. So that's for that's for rank 1. If you're not a rank 1, if you're rank 2, you get the picks, both the 84 plus and the Champs picks. Then you get 2 of the Euro Nations packs, 2 of the Copper America Nations packs, and then everything else is normal. And then if you go down to rank 3, you get the 84 plus picks, the Champs TOTS pick. So the ultimate champs TOTS picks are staying seemingly at every level that at least had them before. But 16 wins is where the 83x5 Euro Nations and Copa America Nations packs start. Anything lower than that, so if you have 14 wins, you just get the 85x4, the Jumbo Rare Players, the Ultimate Pack, and the Ultimate TOTS Untradeable Pack. So there's no Euros or Copa America content in 14 wins or lower. But they have introduced the 84 plus player picks, and you keep the Ultimate TOTS Champs picks. It feels a bit odd to me because I think within 3 or 4 weeks, it's going to make every Ultimate TOTS player essentially worthless because most people who care enough to play the game hard will have got all of those players anyway. So it's a kind of odd thing. I'd have preferred if they just opened it and had a 1 of 3 94 plus any team of the season, and then that would have opened up moments and some of the players that haven't been included because, you know, the TOTS players who've maintained price or even gone slightly up are the ones that aren't in Ultimate TOTS. So to keep them in red picks, I mean, it's great. Like, let's be honest, we've still got something to play for, but I would have preferred it to open up to players that didn't make it because I think that's mainly where people would kind of want players from. And most people have got the big players and they still are going to have the chance at Ronaldo and Mbappe and, you know, the super expensive players or tradable Haaland. But yeah, I think it's weird. I wouldn't be surprised to see a change in it before Champs opens, though.
Yeah, actually, I should clarify because I think it has changed since you took that down, funnily enough. And there are now 84 plus Euros player picks, right? So there is some Euros content, or I guess you'll be getting players from the Euros nations in those player picks. And therefore, I guess there is some theming to the rewards below that point. But on the Ultimate TOTS point, I think that is a very good one. It does seem a bit samey, and you're going to see, maybe not, you know, everyone having the top players, but you're going to see certain players starting to crop up more and more as a result of that. Although, I guess it does depend on the Euros content, which is, you know, starting to look pretty strong. Richard, I know you like a good champs reward, so it's nice to see a change anyway.
Rank 1 seems unbelievable if that's what's going to be it's going to be stayed at. I also think it helps like a lot of the comp players, pro players, whatever you want to call it, their own personal content. Not everyone's going to be able to get rank 1, so making that very similar to what it was back in the day when you used to get the monthly rewards and whatnot, like it makes those ranks feel a bit more special.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, you know, content creation is a big part of what a lot of pro players do, so it's nice to, you know, give them these rewards essentially because, you know, they should almost all be getting it, unless you've got a wheel that you spin before you play games, like a certain house of pros. Right, let's wrap up. Thank you very much to all our guests here. Richard, good to have you back on a Gameplay Pod. Thanks for coming along.
Thank you very much. You can find me on social media at @𝗪𝗚𝗪𝘬𝗪 on all platforms.
Nice. The tactic actually you mentioned earlier, the 4-4-1-1. I was going to say we did have a look for it on social media, and it seems like the EA Sports FC Pro Instagram account did share it, but it isn't as up to date as the one, Richard, you've been using. So just a reminder, if you're going to take it down from there rather than what Richard said, do change it to 100 depth and one of the centre mids on balanced. It will, of course, be in the supporter Discord for gold or above supporters, so you could check it out there. Right, Josh, over to you. Thank you very much for coming on today, and of course steering the good ship FUT Weekly. We're ending a little earlier today, but yeah, you made up for it last week.
Yeah, we kept it on the straight and not so narrow for for a week or so there. But no, good to have you back. It's been good to be here.
Yeah, it's been good. And to 𝗪𝘗𝘗 as well, as always, good to have you on the podcast. Thank you very much for coming.
Cheers, Ben. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been good. And thank you very much, of course, to all you listeners tuning in. If you would like this podcast in your podcast feed, you can get it via the various different podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. Subscribe there, and also subscribe on YouTube, of course. If you're listening there, you can comment, leave a like as well, and that definitely helps the pod out. And if you'd like more FUT Weekly content and to help the pod even more, then you can get that over on the Patreon. Just search Support FUT Weekly. There's a 7-day free trial, so you can check out the content, including this week's content podcast, completely free. A huge thank you to all those supporters, including those icon patrons. Dave B, 𝘬𝘯𝘰, Darren W, Alistair M, Dom P, Rob P, Jeff B, Damon H, Tom B, Adam G, Neil P, Alex M, Jake S, Dan W, Roger D, Lee A, Andrew C, Nishant, Waterman, Dylan H, Adam R, Rob L, Brendan W, Michael K, David G, Jimmy K, Cherry Drank, John D, Michael B, Aditya S, and Joshua K. Plus a special thanks to Luke M, Dave B, Hugh J, Tom M, Darren W, and Pato FUT for advice and production assistance. Before I leave you, just one more thing to add though. Ultimate Team is a bit like life really. It has its many ups and downs. If you're having a few more downs than ups in real life in these more difficult times, then please don't feel that you're alone or need to struggle on without taking action. If you go to thecalmzone.net, there's loads of resources, advice, support, or even just a friendly chat for anyone who needs it. If it sounds like it could help you, then head over to thecalmzone.net. And for now, have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next podcast.